Welcome to Wrasslin Raw! Thank you for joining us. This is Wrasslin Raw. You are here with Joe Gimateo.
Ryan, I don't know if we're going to talk about a match or a fracas tonight, but I'm sure it will be entertaining.
I agree. I am Ryan Arico, and as we said in our last episode, we are without Rob Bartlett's son this week. He just couldn't take any more of Tennessee Lee.
He will not return until Tennessee Lee is gone.
Until he rides that Tennessee stud back.
Off into the sunset.
This episode of Monday Night Raw was recorded in Long Island, New York, home of the Dudester himself.
Yes, sir.
And we have Jim Ross, Michael Cole, Jerry the King Lawler, Jim Cornette, and Vince McMahon on commentary tonight.
Boo.
Joe?
Are you ready?
I am ready. And apparently Long Island is also the home of the gravesite of The Undertaker's mother and father.
Yeah, it's right by. I didn't know that's where they grew up.
I didn't know either.
We start things off with a recap of last week, the Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mr. McMahon story. They show the build-up to the match and ultimately the interruption by Dude Love. Why, dude? Why?
Dude screwed, dude.
We then head to the cemetery where Kane and The Undertaker's parents are buried, as Joe just stated, somewhere here in Long Island, with Kevin Oh My God Kelly. He doesn't know if there's going to be a match here tonight or a fracas. A fucking fracas. Come on,
What?
Kelly. Really?
Wow. Say it.
But the moment all parties arrive, they are going to cut to the cemetery to make sure we don't miss any of the action. Joe, what are your thoughts about the upcoming cemetery match and everything that happened at the beginning here?
Pretty good start to the show. We're starting hot with really the two best storylines that the WWF has going for them so far. So real good start to the show.
The official start here in the ring, or at least the arena, is Dude Love. He comes out with some kind of love shack setup at the top of the ramp. It's like a cutout of a microbus entrance. There's a couple chairs and, of course, a lava lamp.
I loved the inflatable chairs.
Yes.
That was a nice touch.
And then Mr. McMahon, he was having none of it. He comes out, interrupts the dude immediately, even kicking one of the duder's inflatable chairs aside in disgust. That was beautiful. Vince is not happy with the dude for interrupting what Mr. McMahon felt was an easy path to humiliating and possibly humbling the rowdy champ, Stone Cold. And he's going to fine the dude to the sum of $5,000. And then he leaves with him warning to never interfere in his business ever again. Vince then exit through the microbus door cutout entrance of the Love Shack, which I thought was funny, him trying to leave in disgust. Dude ends up getting the mic back though, and the dude said he was confused by last week and why his old former teammate and buddy, who he carried through so many months back at the other company, would attack him when his back was turned. But the dude has an answer. My cats and kitties. It's very simple. It's the root of all evil. It's the chicks. He then goes on to say the type of women that old Steve-O used to bring back, they had hair on their upper lips, and that the women here at Long Island would know exactly what he's talking about.
Why, dude? Why?
Why indeed? But he's willing to put all of that behind us as long as Stone Cold comes out tonight and grovels on his knees. Then all would be forgiven. But if he doesn't, Unforgiven will be a long, long night for Steve. So I thought this was a pretty good promo by Mick. He's really hitting all the bullet points here to set up this title match at Unforgiven with Stone Cold. We get the extra little Mr. McMahon coming out and fining the duder. This doesn't quite have the build-up, though, that a lot of other pay-per-view title matches are given. Like, we're already at the go-home show right here, and it's really only been the end of last week and today that we're going to build this up. So I thought everyone did a good job here. It was just maybe this build-up could have used a little bit more time, a little bit more burn to it. But what did you feel about the Love Shack segment here?
Yeah, nice point about the build-up. It's not like they were in a panic because they knew Shawn Michaels was going to be out after WrestleMania and wasn't going to get a rematch, so they had to have known they were going to go with this Dude Love angle. And I got to say, I'm not loving Dude Love as a heel. I know they're probably going somewhere with this, but Dude Love as a heel, I don't know if I like it as much as Dude Love the babyface. The guy that runs in and makes the saves for the other baby faces. That's what I like to see from Dude Love. But this was a pretty good promo. Mick Foley just doesn't miss. He's going to be entertaining all the time, and it's good to see the Love Shack play on Piper's Pit and all those types of things. And the song was like a fake version of Love Shack. I wonder if that was a cock thing or if
I didn't even think about that. But
maybe they used the real song. I don't know. But unfortunately, Dude Love has to get the checkbook out and pay $5,000. So I liked seeing Vince, even though we're gonna get swerved at some point. You just sense it.
Feel it in your bones.
We know now what happens, but yeah, they're doing a good job at allowing us to feel that swerve coming, and Vince is doing a great job here as Mr. McMahon, just being a total dick now. So
every week, he's getting more and more into that role.
Yes, he's definitely shedding all babyface promoter characteristics that he had before.
Yeah. Well, after that's going to bring us to our first match of the night. Farouk defeats Kama in 6 minutes and 4 seconds in a Long Island street fight. I thought the Nation looked great, led by The Rock coming down through the crowd, Mark Henry carrying a beer keg over his right shoulder, like one of those strongman competitions. And I noticed that Kama is wearing his familiar Godfather hat. That was something that stuck out to me. But before the match got started, the refs sent the rest of the Nation away, leaving just Farouk and Kama in the ring together. And these two big guys, I thought they did pretty well. And since this was a Long Island street fight, there were weapons scattered all around the ring. I loved Farouk taking off his belt and lighting up Kama with that. We were just talking about that a couple weeks ago when we all love when he pulls the dad move and whipping off the belt and going to town with it. Kama turns this match in his favor, though, taking over after hitting Farouk in the ribs with a blacksmith's hammer. Where's Vader when you need him?
Oh.
JR then calls Kama the Godfather of the Nation. The same night, Kama came out with the Godfather hat. I mean, that's exciting to watch that character develop. I always liked the Godfather. I always forget the wrestler's real name, but
Charles something.
Yeah, but anytime I've seen him in interviews and stuff, he just seems like a really cool guy and down to earth.
Seems like the Godfather gimmick later, he wasn't really acting. That was basically him.
Yeah, that was, right. Farouk is still injured with broken ribs from when the Nation ambushed him in the parking lot a few weeks ago, and that gives Kama the advantage, and he is the aggressor for the better part of this match. But when Kama is lining up to hit Farouk in the head with that blacksmith hammer, Farouk takes off his boot and clocks Kama right in the head with it. Farouk then lands the Dominator, picking up a hard-fought victory. I thought this was a pretty strong match between these two big bruisers. It also sets things up for this 3-on-3 match that they're both involved in at Unforgiven. It also keeps Farouk in the Nation this story going, which I'm still invested in. So what did you think about it?
Yeah, two big tough men here. JR gives us one of my favorite JR lines and says this match is not going to be for the weak at heart.
Yeah, that's always a good one.
Yeah, he wasn't wrong. I mean, so to start this out, the Nation has new music, and it sounds very close to what will become The Rock's music later.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah, definitely cool to see that. This match was pretty tough at first. They were not really taking advantage of that Long Island street fight as much as I thought they would.
Until they got the hammer involved.
And the hammer came out and someone got their face caved in almost like Vader. But the match was okay, but it really picked up at the end. That pulling off that boot and just smacking Kama in the face with it, that just looked pretty brutal.
Yeah.
And then hitting the spine buster and it was over. No run in from the Nation. I expected shenanigans, and this was a good ending to this match. I don't like that predictable run in all the time. time, and it seems like they did get away from it.
And that's what I was expecting here. I was expecting some type of run-in, and this match was going to get interfered, but no, we got a clean ending.
Yeah, and it's like Farouk's going to get over on all the henchmen before he gets his hands on the Rock. I mean, that's what you would want to build up to here.
Like a video game.
Yeah. Yeah, so definitely looking forward to this next week and the weeks to come.
Yeah, I totally agree. Next up, we go backstage with DX. They are watching the video from last week's Raw where they pissed on the DOA's Titan motorcycles. And then the Ass Man double dog dares Triple H to expose his big bazooka and let it loose all over the crowd. JR asks in disgust, so Triple H is going to expose himself and urinate on the crowd. DX music hits, and they make their way down to the ring. Triple H is wearing a streaker's trench coat. And Try starts off giving us a rhyme. The DOA rode in on their brass and left with their heads up their ass. Road Dogg then takes over. He calls the LOD 2000's updated look nothing but a polished turd. And then Triple H starts to open up his trench coat like he's going to expose himself. And then they show us the big bazooka. It's a super soaker water gun.
Super soaker. Oh,
DX pulls it out and they have fun just spraying it all over the crowd. And the crowd was loving it too. Everyone was having a good time until LOD 2000 with Owen Hart come out and ruin all the fun, saying it's time to walk the walk. But before any altercation can happen, the commissioner, Slaughter, blocks their way to the ring, saying instead they could face each other on a 3-on-3 match later tonight. Triple H says that's fine because DX is going to kick all their asses tonight. And if you're not down with that, I've got 2 words for you. And the crowd, who typically cheers for LOD, all scream back, suck it. It seems like they're in DX's corner now. Joe, how did you feel about this girthy segment?
Yeah, how did I feel about getting a golden shower? Yeah, we are Attitude Era here.
211.
Yeah, teasing the golden shower on the crowd. And like you said, I loved hearing JR telling us that he is going to expose himself and urinate on the crowd. Just hearing JR say that was like
and
hilarious.
You know he hated saying that.
Yes.
You know he didn't like that.
Yes. Something else that JR mentioned that was it didn't really stand out that much was that China is going to be in the shark cage at the pay-per-view.
Yeah. They make a little bit more of a deal of it later, but he briefly mentions it here.
Yeah. So that's interesting. Next, 6 days at the pay-per-view, we're going to see that. New Age Outlaws, what they're saying here is painfully true. The LOD 2000 basically is a polished turd at this point, unfortunately.
Yep, that is precisely what this repackaging is.
Yeah, JR with another great line saying, I feel like I'm at a Gallagher concert. That popped me.
I always wanted to go to a Gallagher concert.
Yeah.
So. After that, we see Vince McMahon pacing somewhere in the hallways backstage when a terrified assistant walks into frame, handing Vince a cup of coffee. Her hand is just trembling in fear as the very pissed off Vince McMahon glares at her as he snatches the cup from her hand.
I'd hate to know what happened to that girl later.
Who knows what lawsuit that's in.
That poor intern.
But after he takes a sip, he makes a very satisfied look as if he enjoyed the coffee. So maybe she got off the hook. Then Kevin Kelly at the front gates of the cemetery informs us that The Undertaker is just minutes away from arriving, and when he does, all hell could break loose. Then we come back to the arena for our next match. Dan the Beast Severn defeats Mosh in 2 minutes and 42 seconds. The Headbangers as a team have been jobbing out for months now, so I guess might as well do it in solo action too now, right?
Yep.
Of course, Mosh was given no entrance. He was just waiting in the ring for Severn. Trying to talk Mosh up a bit, though, commentary tells us Mosh was an impressive collegiate wrestler in his own right, and that this should be a good match. They play it off
he's been
like
jobbed
that.
out.
Yeah, they play it like that for about 4 seconds. There's a couple single leg takedowns and some other legit wrestling moves. But then the Beast starts destroying Mosh, landing a series of suplexes and side slams. JR, of course, brings up that Dan is still learning the catch-a-catch-can style of the WWF. He just had to find a way to squeeze that in. Yeah, anytime he can. And right as the match was coming to a close with Mosh jobbing out to Dan's armbar, JR interrupts and says, "There's big news. Something has happened at the cemetery. Who gives a fuck about this match?"
Yeah.
But before we head back to the cemetery with Kevin Kelly, Joe, what are your thoughts on this squash match and Vince McMahon before that looking very angry at an intern?
Yeah, well, he has what's probably at least his third cup of coffee. He's going to have a few more tonight. I don't know. He looks a little nervous tonight. He's like a pissed off nervous.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And then Kevin, oh my God, Kelly, he gives us positive confirmation about The Undertaker, that he has arrived at that Long Island cemetery. And then we get to Dan Severn. So is this the first match that we've seen Dan Severn?
I feel like it's the second.
It's sad that I have to ask that because
I feel like he squashed someone last week, too. I can't think who, but
I'm starting to realize why I don't remember much about Dan Severn in the WWF.
Yeah.
His matches are just boring. Mm-hmm. They're not, like, JR is describing him as this trained killer during this match, but he's really just suplexing guys, and
that's about it.
It looks like he struggles to do it a little bit sometimes. I wonder if he's just being extra cautious. I'm not sure, but like compare it to like when Brock Lesnar first arrived on the scene.
Right.
That guy was working like a trained killer.
Yeah, he was a true beast when he came in.
And Dan Severn is being sold as that, but to me, his matches aren't really showing that. Maybe that'll change at some point. Obviously, this guy is he's a trained fighter that's been a champion in UFC.
Yeah.
But it's just not translating well. And he did wrestle for Smoky Mountain and NWA, so it's not like he's learning the sport.
So did the Midnight Express and the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah. And Brian Lee. Yeah, I'm starting to realize already that this guy is just boring, unfortunately.
Why it was so forgettable.
Yeah.
Like JR said at the end of the last match, we are now going to head to the cemetery where Kevin, oh my God, Kelly says that he doesn't know what happened, but The Undertaker left as quickly as he arrived. The moment The Undertaker went into the cemetery, he heard a blood-curdling scream, and that was it. Then The Undertaker pops out from behind the bushes like a horror movie villain, grabbing Kelly by the lapels, smashing him up against the gate of the cemetery, demanding to know where they're at. And by God, Taker just crushes Kelly into the ground up against the cemetery. He folded him over into a pile of sludge, and he was just gasping for air. It was pretty glorious, I thought. We then go to a quick break, and when they come back, Kelly is still on the ground gathering himself in front of the gates, and in a raspy voice says, I don't know what made The Undertaker so upset. He came to me looking for answers, and I didn't have any. He then assumes The Undertaker is heading back to the arena.
The graveyard's not far away from the arena.
It's very close, but I have to say I absolutely loved this segment and The Undertaker just unloading on Kevin Kelly here. What did you think about it?
Yeah, I agree. I think that they both sold it very well. I think Kevin Kelly overdid it after a little bit, but during the actual confrontation there, it was pretty good stuff. I mean, it looked real. And yeah, I can't believe his parents are buried in Long Island near this arena.
I would have thought
it's wild
Death
to
Valley.
Me. Yeah.
After the cemetery, we do come back to the arena and head into our next match. Bradshaw defeats the Artist, formerly known as Goldust, by DQ in 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Before the match can get started, Luna gets on the mic and starts calling Sable out again. Luna says at Unforgiven, she's going to leave Sable just like a newborn after she strips Sable's grotesque body of every strip of clothing, including her bra and panties, which the crowd goes crazy for. Joe, you brought up a couple weeks ago, it's kind of sad that Goldust, even his matches, are just platforms for Luna and Sable's feud. I mean, he's completely forgotten here.
Yeah. For now, until Sable powerbombs her husband. We need that to happen soon so that Goldust can be back to his antics.
Things actually mattering for him.
Yeah.
Bradshaw comes down to the ring still wearing those stupid assless chaps and ridiculous mustache. Yeah.
God.
But he starts it off hot, taking it to Goldust. He whips Goldust with his assless chaps before he throws them out of the ring. JR explains what an evening gown match is to us again, and again comparing it to a tuxedo match, like that one we saw with Harvey Whippleman and Fink a few years ago.
That legendary tuxedo match.
Legendary. Commentary couldn't stop talking about this evening gown match, and it took up most of the match. The match itself was serviceable, I thought. These are two good mid-carders that were going at it here, but before the match could conclude, Club Kamikaze comes out and the three of them attack Bradshaw before quickly disappearing into the crowd. So, again, it's making me wonder, who is this Club Kamikaze and what are they all about? There was nothing too drawn out here, a simple less than 5-minute match, and they continue to have me wondering about this new faction, Club Kamikaze.
Yeah, Luna cuts this promo, and she basically tells us that we're going to see full frontal nudity at the pay-per-view.
It sounded like it.
So, I mean, I'm going to buy it based on that, along with everyone else in this crowd in Long Island. Yeah, they're trying to sell it like it's some humiliating thing, but obviously it's not. That's who the crowd thinks is the hottest female in the WWF, so obviously they're going to enjoy seeing that. Yeah, and then Goldust and Bradshaw, we mentioned already, Bradshaw looks fucking ridiculous when he enters the ring, but once he's in the ring, he looks pretty good. He's a big guy.
He looks like a badass once he strips off all the ridiculous shit.
Yes. And JR, he said that Bradshaw is like a Brahma bull, which I thought was interesting.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, they're just talking about the full frontal nudity that were being promised at the pay-per-view during the entire match.
Yeah, that's all that mattered.
And then Club Kamikaze comes out, and I gotta say, I didn't think this did any favors for Club Kamikaze because Bradshaw's so big and they're so small.
It looked like one of those midget matches where
they look like midgets.
3 midgets. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't look great, but it wasn't damaging to them because they got the best of Bradshaw there. But I kind of wonder if, I don't know, maybe Bradshaw was maybe filling in for someone else who was injured or something. I'm not quite sure if this was the original. Maybe
in this match?
I don't know. But that was just strange. But yeah, I guess we're gonna maybe learn more about Club Kamikaze here in the coming weeks.
Well, before we head to break, we see Austin making his way to the ring, and JR tells us business is about to pick up, and like other lines of his, that's one I just always love when he says it.
Yeah.
This week's Slam of the Week is brought to you by M&M's, the official candy of the new millennium. The Slam of the Week was really a slap of the week when Vince McMahon slapped Stone Cold last week. And that's what wraps up our first hour of Raw. We get our midway point music crossing over into Warzone, and then the glass breaks, and Stone Cold Steve Austin makes his way to the ring. Great way to start off the new hour. The crowd goes crazy. And he gives his retelling of what happened last week in the events. And Steve thinks Dude Love's interruption was a conspiracy, and that really the psychedelic jackass and Mr. McMahon have been working together all along. He then cuts a promo on Love, saying he's going to get his payback, and tonight he will get his hands on Vince McMahon, and he will get his hands on Dude Love, and that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so. Before leaving, though, he harasses the Fink and a photographer at ringside, as well as knocking the headset off a cameraman on the way out of the entrance. This was a pretty short segment, but I thought one filled with a lot of fire. Joe?
Yeah, I agree. It's now Austin is telling us that he thinks this is a conspiracy between Mr. McMahon and the psychedelic jackass. I loved that line.
Yeah, that was a great line.
So, it's these three guys now that are selling this story. And again, I said earlier, this smells fishy between Dude Love and Vince McMahon. and Austin's basically confirming that. So now you're just excited to see how it's all going to unfold at some point. Yeah, it's Steve Austin kicking off the second hour, so nothing wrong with that.
Now to our next match. Terry Funk and Too Cold Scorpio defeat the Midnight Express, Bodacious Bart and Bombastic Bob with Dan Severn and Jim Cornette in 7 minutes and 4 seconds. Too Cold Scorpio looks thrilled to be rid of that stupid fucking Flash Funk gimmick. He looks like a new man. He's smiling on the way to the ring. Jim Cornette joins us on commentary, and he tries to make sure we talk about the match and the Midnight Express, but to no avail, as they spend a lot of time talking about the hearse that has shown up backstage at the arena, Dan Severn, who's standing next to Jim, and of course the Mr. McMahon and Stone Cold feud. The ring action was pretty solid, nothing special, that's for sure, but good tag team match as far as WWF tag team matches go. Especially Too Cold. I thought he looked really fast and strong when we were actually seeing the match, landing a series of high-impact moves that I thought looked pretty great, including the awesome-looking 450 splash that he lands for the win. After the match, Dan Severn comes into the ring and suplexes the victorious Scorpio. The Beast and Cornette, though, quickly retreat once Terry Funk enters the ring with a steel chair. And that's it. A pretty run-of-the-mill, we don't give a fuck about tag team match. And it was used mostly to talk about setting up other stories. So what do you have on this?
Yeah, I mean, we're basically just talking about that hearse that rolled in here.
Yeah, and everything else. I mean, we're touching on all subjects here but the match.
Yeah, Dan Severn, he's already in a suit. He just wrestled like 15 minutes ago, and he's out here in a suit. And the Midnight Express gimmick, the new Midnight Express gimmick, I should say, it ain't working.
No,
so
it wasn't working the day they announced it.
Yes, so zero excitement there when we see them in a match. And the crowd was pretty much dead for this whole thing until the end when Flash Funk finally started getting funky.
That's what they want. They want the funk.
They do. They want to see those funky, high-flying moves and the 450 and all the other cool stuff that he does at the end of his matches, which was cool. Jerry Lawler had a funny comment here. I don't know why it popped me, but he suggested that Vince should have a nice fireside chat with Steve Austin. I just thought that was hilarious.
Fireside chat.
Yeah.
For all the history buffs out there, he brought that one up.
Yeah, yeah. Dan Severn running away from Terry Funk. Ooh, I didn't like that.
No.
If you're going to sell this guy as a trained killer, I don't think he should be running away from Terry Funk.
Yeah.
But Terry Funk is a guy that it's like, oh, man, you want a guy that can help put Dan Severn over. He's one of those guys,
Yeah.
but that's not what happened. So
No.
This was, I wouldn't say filler necessarily, but not very exciting.
We get a quick view of that hearse again backstage that they've been talking about, and the King assumes it must be The Undertaker. Then we hear Val Venus moaning, and we join him as he makes his way out of a steamy shower he was enjoying with a couple ladies. He says there's nothing like a hot shower after a hard day's night. He then says, when Val Venus is coming, there will be no stopping him.
The bazooka.
We then hear Sable's cat music start, and she comes down to the ring to talk with Michael Cole about the upcoming evening gown match. And she asks, do you think I'm afraid of being humiliated? And then she goes on to basically say, I don't care if I get stripped of every piece of my clothes in about 4 or 5 different ways. She just continuously reiterates that I might be stripped of all my clothes and that she doesn't care. They say she's going to be naked maybe about 12 times. JR reiterates that, saying this Sunday the clothes are coming off.
Oh my
Joe, what are your thoughts on Val Venus coming and Sable stripping?
Well, this Val Venus vignette was probably not one of the best ones, but it was still pretty good. All of them are entertaining. The creepy laugh, it's a little, he overdoes it a little bit. They're still funny and entertaining. And Sable coming out here with a live mic is never exciting. No. She does basically say, like, look, Michael Cole, I've spent a lot of money on my boobs and training in the gym, so clearly I don't care if I will be completely naked in front of everyone.
Let me restate that. Completely naked in front of everyone.
Yeah. So more bait and switch to get us to buy that pay-per-view, and it's probably working, I would guess.
Yeah, probably is. We then cut to the Hearst again. This time, though, we see a dirty and disheveled Paul Bearer exit the hearse with Kane following. After the break, we come back to Michael Cole asking Mr. McMahon backstage about the conspiracy allegations Stone Cold made earlier tonight. He said Austin has been watching too many Oliver Stone movies. I guess what JFK must have probably just came out within the last year or so. And then Vince says that he was ready for Stone Cold last week, and he'll be ready for him if he attacks this week. Then the DX music hits, and we head into our next match. D-Generation X, Billy Gunn, the Road Dogg, and Triple H with Chyna and X-Pac defeat LOD 2000, Road Warrior Animal and Road Warrior Hawk, and Owen Hart with Sonny in a 6-man tag in 11 minutes and 24 seconds. There's a lot of star power in the ring for this one. DX storyline, though, I'm not interested in either of the two that they're working on here.
Yeah.
JR and the King bring up that Chyna is going to be hung. Get it? Hung in a cage above the ring during the Owen Hart Triple H match at pay-per-view. Billy Gunn and Owen start things off on this 3-on-3, and it was pretty decent action between them. Hawk gets tagged in, and he takes on Road Dogg.
Then the action stops.
Yeah. Then, as we've pointed out before, it's pretty obvious LOD is way, way over the hill. And they're rebranding here. Joe, you took the words out of my mouth earlier, correctly stated.
Yeah.
By Road Dogg here. They're a polished turd. And there's really no better way to put it. They just have on a different set of spiked shoulder pads.
Yep.
But honestly, if not for the tired storyline, I could have got into this match if I was in the crowd, maybe not so much TV-wise. But the thing that got my head scratching and made me think that is the fickle crowd starts chanting for LOD. Earlier, they were in DX's corner, but now it sounds like they want LOD back. During that rally, though, LOD lands their Doomsday device on Road Dogg, but are unable to cover for the pin. They are interrupted by Chyna, who grabs Sonny and tosses her over her shoulder like a rag doll. X-Pac then makes his way into the ring, hits Animal in the head with a chair. The ref was distracted, so he missed it, but he comes back in to see Assman land a spike pile driver for the win. Some of the action in this match was okay. The LOD have outstayed their welcome months and months ago. I'm excited about DX, but this right now are two storylines with Owen and LOD that they need to move past because they have much better things on the horizon than this.
Yeah, I agree. This match was just not very good. LOD, they've been back in the WWF now for about a year, maybe a little bit over a year at this point, but they look like they've aged about 8 years during that time. Like they just look old and slow and tired.
Yep.
Can't blame them. They've been doing this for a long time.
New face paint isn't going to change that.
Yeah. Then the way this match ended, like Chyna just basically teases that she's going to kill Sonny. And that's enough to distract the ref and completely throw things off and end the match. So Just, I don't know. I feel like they could have been more creative here. Unfortunately, DX is like, they're basically just an attraction at this point right now. So, like you mentioned, everything that they're involved with storyline-wise is just not very captivating right now. Eventually, we'll probably get there, but right now, DX is basically just an attraction that just buries everybody that they go up against.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. Then we see Paul Bearer and Kane open up the back doors of that hearse, revealing 2 dirt and maggot-covered coffins. Paul refers to the 2 boxes as Mommy and Daddy. And as he and Kane wheel one of the coffins down the hallway, Paul Bearer begins singing, "Digging up the bones, digging up the bones." My Lord, what a beautiful man. We cut to a short break, and when we come back, the lights go out, the organ plays, and they bring the coffins out up on the top of the ramp. Paul said he is doing The Undertaker a favor because Taker never got to go to his parents' funeral, so he's going to have one for him tonight. Paul gloats. "Look how cheap these caskets are." He tells us that he got the most modestly priced receptacles he could find for them. Then the bell tolls, and the Undertaker makes his way through the crowd. Kane then pours a gallon of gasoline over the top of one of the coffins, with Paul Bearer telling the Undertaker to stay back. Paul then lights one of the caskets on fire, while Kane chokeslams the Undertaker through the other. Paul then tells Taker to sleep with your mama. They zoom in on the motionless Undertaker to show us bones of his mother underneath him.
Wow.
We close out the segment with JR telling us the arena has been turned into a crematorium. Whoa. That was pretty intense. I don't think that we've seen anything to this date that was this dark.
Yeah.
This was taking it to another level, showing the supposed bones and exhumed caskets of Kane and Undertaker's parents, maggots crawling all over them. I loved it, of course, taking this story to another level yet again, and I'm excited for the first Inferno match at pay-per-view. I love just about anything Kane, Paul Bearer, and The Undertaker involved in, so I'm a bit biased. Joe, how did you feel about these disturbing set of events?
Yeah, this is something that's like, man, this is taking it to the next level. Paul Bearer really made this whole thing for me. So evil. Sinister. Watching this now in our 40s, I'm just laughing the whole time I watch this. But I remember watching this as a teenager and I thought, like, man, this is really messed up. Like, I knew it was fake, obviously, but like, this is really messed up. Like, this is some weird shit to see on TV. Yeah. In the 90s, the bones and the worms. Yeah. I mean, it was just hilarious. But again, like at the time, it's like, man, this is really messed up. Like, this is some edgy shit that they're doing. Then Michael Cole tells us that The Undertaker is with the remains. When they come back, like the way they're selling it is like
very morbid.
Like this very, very morbid. They're really, really selling it that way on commentary, and that made it even more funny to me. So I wonder how much they questioned, like, whether or not they should do this.
Are they going too far?
Yeah. Too far and too not believable. Like, are we stretching it a little too far here? But
I mean, we had Kane light someone on fire with a lightning bolt, though. So, we've already jumped the shark.
Yes. Like I said before, everything with Kane now is basically just a Vegas show at this point. And that's what this was. Pretty much. Cinema, Vegas type entertainment.
Theater to the max.
Yes. Like I said, watching it now is really hilarious, and I encourage everyone to go back and watch this. Even if you do remember it, just go watch the whole thing.
Yep, for sure. After things calm down, we head into our last match of the night.
How do you not finish with that, too, by the way? Like,
that should have been the final, I agree.
There's more show after that.
There is, like our last match. Dude Love defeats Steve Blackman in 3 minutes and 56 seconds. First, Vince McMahon makes his way to ringside to join us on commentary. And I'm wondering, where are all those cops at that he's been walking around with lately? Because, I don't know, I guess desecration of a gravesite isn't a serious enough crime for them.
Yeah.
I got a kick out of the King saying, seems like old times, as Vince takes the seat next to JR. Vince then added, well, somehow this feels right at home. Hopefully for not too long, Vince.
Not for us.
I laughed at Dude Love mocking Blackman's karate moves. It was very childish. Blackman still looked a bit wooden in the ring at the start. Mick was selling pretty well, and I thought he ended up making this match flow pretty good. It wasn't great, but it worked. Vince then drops a bomb telling us he guarantees something catastrophic will happen at Unforgiven. Guaranteed or our money back. He also added that he will be at ringside at least for some of the event, saying someone has to make sure the title match is fair. The attention is put back on the action in the ring just in time for us to see Dude Love reverse an abdominal stretch, and then immediately the ring bell rings, indicating the end of the match, without Blackman ever seen giving up. JR questions, why'd the bell ring? To which Vince answers, what do you mean? Pretty obvious to me what happened. Steve Blackman then goes outside the ring and tosses that poor Louis Gianfrido looking timekeeper over his shoulder like a sack of shit. He got tossed over his shoulder.
Yeah.
He fucking flew.
Yep.
Stone Cold then makes a beeline to the ring, clotheslining Dude Love and immediately pouncing on Mr. McMahon, tossing Vince to the ground and stomping a mud hole in him. Dude then tries to make the save, but Austin puts Dude down again. Vince makes his way into the ring alone, and he starts strutting around like he wants a piece of Stone Cold. But the moment Austin joins him in the ring, Vince's two lackeys, Patterson and Briscoe, come in out of nowhere and form a line in front of Mr. McMahon, both getting a stunner. But Vince, the slippery eel, slides out of the ring right as Dude Love grabs Steve's legs. Dude and Austin slug it out as we fade to black. A pretty short match, and sadly for Blackman, the match really wasn't the point at all here. Dude Love and Stone Cold's match at Unforgiven is, and even more so, the Stone Cold and Mr. McMahon feud is. But I thought this segment was fairly strong and a decent way to end this go-home show, but I definitely agree it should have ended on The Undertaker laying on his mother's grave thing, or coffin, I guess I should say. Joe, what did you think about this last match and its aftermath?
Well, Mr. McMahon joining commentary was not good. Vince immediately went into his broadcaster voice, and I hated it. Like you said, he keeps saying that something catastrophic will happen. He said that a handful of times during his commentary here. And it seems like they're having some fun playing around with the screw job type finish here. Very similar to what happened in November, so that was funny to see that. But I thought there was pretty good chaos at the end between Steve Austin, Vince McMahon, and Dude Love. I think that will get people hyped up for the pay-per-view. I thought it was pretty well done, and there's really no need to tease any full frontal nudity, but it doesn't hurt, I guess.
It could always add some viewers.
Yeah.
But yeah, the match itself was an afterthought here. It wasn't needed, really.
I mean, it's like, okay, we know Steve Blackman is not going to win this match and get a shot at the title.
I guess my only question is since this was a completely worthless match, why give Blackman his second loss here to both?
Right.
I mean, I understand both times now he's been cheated. So, I mean, I guess maybe they're going to play up that at some point, but I think you could have threw someone else out here to the fire line.
Yeah. Yep. I agree.
That, as I said, brought us to the end of Raw, so that leaves us with highlights and lowlights. Joe, start us off.
I have to say my highlight was The Undertaker being chokeslammed onto his mother's casket and laying in the bones for a while there before going to commercial break. Good thing they didn't cut the feed during all of that.
I'm glad they kept it going.
Yeah, and my low light, I gotta say, it's the Dan Severn match. I just thought it was boring. I thought that we're looking at this so-called trained killer, but his match was boring, and all they talked about was a bunch of other shit during that match, not caring about Dan Severn being this trained killer.
It's hard to argue with you there, but I did have a different low light. My low light was Bradshaw versus Goldust, mostly because I'm tired of seeing Goldust get used in such a disrespectful way. He's done nothing for himself for the last 2-3 months. It's all been to get Sable over. So
yeah,
that's my low light. Highlight, though, we are going to agree. I mean, for the most part, mine is a whole Undertaker, Kane, Paul Bearer cemetery story from tonight, leading from Kevin Kelly getting crushed all the way to the end where the Undertaker gets chokeslammed on his mother's bones. Just everything here I thought was glorious, and I fucking loved it. So that was definitely my highlight.
Yeah, good point on Goldust too. That's one of those things that gets lost in the shuffle when people talk about Sable and her rise to popularity. It's like, we knew about Mark Marrow throwing his entire wrestling career away. What gets lost in the shuffle are guys like Goldust, who really had to take a hit here too for quite a while.
It's like Bartlett brings up about the dark side of the ring and stuff. Like, obviously people know about how tough of a time Luna had having to do this, but I think Goldust, who she was partnered up with here, he was getting maybe even worse, because here we have a match like for Goldust, but it was more for Luna to be able to call out Sable at the beginning.
Well, as JR would say, as long as he gets to hit the pay window, I'm sure he was happy.
Yep, as long as he's got that extra slice of cheese on the Whopper, he's going to be happy.
Yep.
Since we're done with the episode, Joe, do you have any contemporary news for us today?
I do. I have a few things from The Observer this week. I mentioned last week that there's a little bit of trouble in paradise between Ric Flair and Eric Bischoff over at WCW. I guess WCW filed a $2 million lawsuit against Ric Flair for no showing a Tallahassee date.
$2 million
for WCW.
For one date?
$2 million, yeah.
Damn.
Per Dave Meltzer, take that for what it's worth there. But Ric Flair is still under contract and has not yet been terminated. The reason I bring this up is because there was a lot of talk during this time that maybe Ric Flair would be going to WWF. But we know now that he doesn't, but that's the talk that was happening at this time.
That would have been a hell of a grab for back then. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that brings up something a little earlier in the night. JR said that next week for the pay-per-view and the Raw, we're going to be in Ric Flair's neck of the woods. So I wonder if that was why he name-dropped him, because of his possible issues over there.
Yeah.
Maybe there were some legitimate talks.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I forgot that he dropped the name there.
Yeah.
Good point. Ken Shamrock, we did not see him tonight.
No.
He had that little injury. It's officially ruled as an ankle injury, but possibly just a sprain, so not sure how long he'll be out. There has been talk of repackaging the Godwins, which I don't think would be a bad thing at this point.
No. I think we know where Phineas is going to be heading soon.
Yeah. Ken Shamrock, again, is in the news. He released a book. It is a combination of an autobiography and a fighting training manual. So I was unaware that Ken Shamrock ever released a book.
I have to imagine there's a ghostwriter there.
Oh, yeah. Has to be. Also, you remember these things, Ryan, called malls? You used to be able to go and buy clothes there.
Yeah, back when we were little, they used to be around. They were big gathering centers of some sort.
Yes. Well, one of the things that really helped WWF defeat WCW was their merch sales. And Dave Meltzer is pointing out here that Steve Austin, DX, and WWF Attitude shirts are now available in a lot of malls throughout the country. I would guess that would be a Spencer's store.
Yeah, Spencer's. Maybe Hot Topics? Was that starting to be around by the late 90s?
I'm not sure. Maybe.
I think.
Yeah.
But whatever happened to all those commercials we used to see to call in to get merch?
Oh, what the hell was that guy's name? Who was the merch peddler?
Yeah, what the hell was his name?
Barry? Was it Barry something?
Barry.
Oh, man.
Yeah. He's
Shame on
forgettable.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been too long.
But yeah, that's it for the news. But I wanted to share something with the absence of Rob Bartlett's son. Jason does like to run down when there's a Pittsburgh show. He likes to run down the card, given that we are all three from that area. Well, Ryan, you and I live near the Hershey, PA area right now,
Yep.
and there was a show in Hershey on April 16th.
Ooh.
And I'm going to take you through the card here and get your thoughts.
Sounds exciting.
We started off with Brian Christopher and Scott Taylor teaming up to defeat Taka Michinoku and Aguila.
Poor Taka.
Then we had the hometown boy, Steve Blackman, defeating Savio Vega.
Oh, nice. For anyone that doesn't know, Anvil is just a stone's throw from Hershey there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yep. And the next match, we had Bradshaw defeating Goldust. Also, Sable attacked Luna at ringside,
Okay.
too. And apparently Bradshaw was a replacement for Mark Marrow. I guess Mark Marrow was supposed to be in this match, but he was out sick, so Bradshaw took his place. Next match was the Headbangers defeating the New Midnight Express. I bet that was a great match.
Ooh, even the new Midnight Express is losing to the Headbangers, man.
Yep.
They've fallen really quick.
Triple H defeated Owen Hart. I know that's hard to believe, you
After
know,
he
but
took a shit right on his face. And then,
yeah, it runs in the family. They like to do those things.
yeah.
So that was thanks to interference from China, by the way.
Wiffle ball bat, maybe.
Yeah. Farouk defeated The Rock. So how about that match?
Yeah.
By DQ, so he didn't win the title. LOD 2000 defeated the New Age Outlaws. Again, DQ, so no title change. House show.
Yeah.
And our main event was The Undertaker defeating his brother Kane.
Whoa.
Pretty good show there overall. No Steve Austin, but
I'm surprised they ended with that, with no DQ or anything in that. That was just a straight, legitimate win.
yeah, it said something and a tombstone, and it was over. So it was a clean win for Undertaker. So no Steve Austin, no a Dude Love or Mr. McMahon type stuff, but overall I think that seems like a pretty decent show.
Yeah. I mean, especially that last match. I mean, you're going
Right.
away with probably a smile on your face.
Yeah, and you got the Farouk and The Rock match, which is good. So yeah, not too bad there. And that is all this week.
Well, thank you, Joe. And that's a wrap. Thank you, folks, for listening. And if you enjoyed it, our podcast is available at all popular podcast platforms. You can also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Just look up Wrasslin Raw. That's WRASSLINRAW. If you want to really help out, give us a 5-star review or leave us a comment and tell your friends to tune in to the most morbid Monday Night Raw review podcast on the airwaves. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we'll be back to our normal 3-man booth. Bartlett is expected to have wrapped up his 18%er business as we take on In Your House 21, Unforgiven, with matches featuring the Midnight Express,
Oh.
the Rock and Roll Express,
Oh no. Give the sound. You got to give the sound.
and many more.
Well, thank goodness for that full frontal nudity. 'Cause
Yeah, you'll need some eye bleach.
Yes.
So for Joe and Jason, I'm Ryan, and you've been listening to Wrasslin Raw.